Hi, I'm Wayne Turmel. I am the co-author with Kevin Eikenberry of The Long Distance Team, Designing Your Team for Everyone's Success. Best advice I ever got is 3 rights make a left.
Come on, Termel. 3 rights make a left. When did you learn that? Who told you that?
My old man taught me that when I was learning to drive. And what he meant by that was you can sit at the stop sign all day waiting. If you're pulling out from a country road, which we lived on, onto a major highway, you can sit there an awfully long time. Or you can do one of these and be on your way. And as a metaphor for life, we have all sat there waiting for the circumstances to be exactly right in order to do something, when in fact, if you just take a little side route, you can get where you're going faster. And so how's that for a piece of advice?
So that is, of course, not at all what I expected you were going to say, and that's so interesting. But yeah, that side route is often ends up being the most efficient path, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. So how do you know when it's time to wait and when it's time to turn right?
If you are getting frustrated and in grave danger of creating an accident by pulling out into a flow of traffic, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I'm getting impatient, I'm probably going to make a dangerous decision.
Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. I like that. So I can get behind that. So don't just listen to the go go go. Instead, go slow, 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 and actually get there. That's interesting. That's pretty interesting. So how old were you, Wayne? Was this like when you first
Well,
started
so when was I
driving?
learning to drive? 16?
Okay. Cool. I love that, man. That's so cool. That's so cool. Go ahead.
It's funny. There are two things as I think about my old man who left us a few years ago, and I think about the lessons that I learned. There are two. I mean, that's one, 3 rights make a left. Sometimes that's the right call. And the other one is if you take a man's money, you do the job, shut up.
Oh yeah, no, I love that one. No, I think let's talk about that, right? And then let's jump into the book because I think that's really good too, right? And I've heard, I've done that one myself, right? I mean, I don't love every job that I have, but as soon as I take your money, I got to shut the hell up and do the damn work, right?
Well, and as a young man, I mean, I started working part time at 15, and I had shockingly, given my subtle and introverted nature, uh, tended to believe I was always smarter than the people I worked for. And so I would complain my boss is an idiot and blah, 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 blah. And at some point he said, "Are the checks clearing?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Is his name on the door?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, "If you take his money, shut up and do the job. If you don't want to take his money, fine."
Yeah. Wow. That's spectacular, man. I love that. I mean, that's just so simple and yet so powerful. And I think that totally relates to your book here that you have, The Long Distance Team, man, because I know a lot of people don't like to work remote, or at least they didn't a couple years ago. Now they're like, "Oh yeah, baby, I don't have to commute anymore. This is awesome." So let's talk about that kind of shut up, take your money as it relates to the long distance team.
Yeah,
So
I think I need to state something for the record, and I know you know this, but Kevin and I very often get lumped in the remote worker zealot kind of camp, right? All these people never go into the office again, and you can live on a beach and do your job, and all of that stuff. And in fact, that's not true. My goal is if you're going to make a living, try not to have it kill you. And if you're going to run a business in the way that allows you to do it well and be humane to your workers while still being profitable. And so the answer to should people work remote or should they get their tails into the office is not that simple. Every organization, and right now we're at a really unique inflection point in history because it's not often that there are these kind of seismic, obvious turning points. And we've kind of had time to catch our breath. It's like we went from everybody in the office to over a third of the workforce working from home in a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was like no time to plan it, no time to think about it. We just kind of treaded water until we figured it out. Now we're talking about going back to the office, and a lot of people are finding that their return to office plans are blowing up left, center, and right for all kinds of reasons. And it's not like, the workers have seized the means of production and we're never going back into the office and the employer has no choice about it. We're also at a stage where the employer says, I want everybody in the office, no excuses, 5 days a week. And people have said, you know what? Not so much.
Yeah.
And so what the long distance team is about is saying, okay, forget where the work happens for a moment. You're designing a team. What's the work that needs to be done? If I'm installing widgets, I can't install widgets at home. Somebody's got to be in the office installing widgets. Right? Somebody's got to be putting the things together and tightening the bolts. That job has to be done there. If I'm supporting that team, do I have to be in the office every day? And, this has wide-ranging implications. Do I want to hire the best possible people to work on this creative project? Or do I want to hire the best possible people to work on this creative project that live within 15 miles of my office?
Mm. Yeah, that's a big question though, right? Because we talk, teams are subsets of the culture of the organization.
Right.
Often the organization has been created, founded, whatever the heck you want to call it, right? Based on a location, right?
Right.
We're in Milwaukee, we're in Orlando, we're in Las Vegas, right? And we're like, okay, so
Detroit
these are
is
the
the
best,
automotive capital of the US
right?
because Henry Ford and Robert Olds lived there.
Right,
That's
right.
why that's the
Yeah,
capital.
yeah, sure, but I mean, but intrinsically, aren't people like from Detroit like more mechanically minded? No, yeah, maybe.
It's too many years and
No, but okay, but
too long.
insert, right? So, okay, Las Vegas, right? You're in Vegas now, right? So are people more, do they understand the business of casinos more because they're in Las Vegas?
I
I don't know.
I have it's in the newspaper. I probably understand more about the casino business than the average person in Des Moines.
Okay.
I don't work for a casino. No casino in its right mind would hire me. But there's something in the air. I mean, is there something to be said for critical mass? Silicon Valley has a buttload of engineers,
Yeah.
right? And they know each other and they talk and they get drunk together and they hire each other and they steal each other away from each other. And so, there's a Silicon Valley culture. Is Silicon Valley the only place you can hire engineers? No.
Right.
So, the thing is, we spend the first few pages of the book defining what is a team, and then we have to define what the heck is culture. Because the default culture for a lot of places, you're right. I mean, the Kevin Eikenberry Group, my boss Kevin, founded a company with his name on it. It's very clear that every single person that's been hired in this company has been hired by Kevin, and he looks for certain things in the way somebody works and does their work. So there is a culture to the Kevin Eikenberry Group. Now, I happen to be in charge of a lot of the long distance leader, remote, hybrid work content. And there are a few people on the team who work with me in that area. The Kevin Eikenberry Group has a culture and an approach to things that is the macro culture. But our little group of gremlins that works on this is very different. I'm a very different person from Kevin. We work great together. I'm a fit with the macro culture, but our little skunk works figure it out team has its own culture, its own
Hmm.
microculture. And as you're thinking about what jobs need to be done, right? Can we work in this culture? Can we make culture work? The big question is, can we make culture work if people aren't coming back into the office together?
Right. Yeah. That was where I was
That's
going to
the
go.
question.
Right. Yeah.
The question is, and I hear this all the time from people, we had a culture in the glorious before times, and it's not the same as it was. And I go, no, you're probably right. But there's a couple of things. One is, do we accurately remember what the culture was in the before
Mm.
time? Because
Yeah.
there's this tendency to look back and it's like, did you work in the Garden of Eden? Probably not. My guess is that there were things about your culture, your company, how you did your work that probably weren't great. But we're so busy doing it that we just deal with it, right? Now, if you stop and think about what would you like your culture to be,
Mm.
right? And given that we're probably not going to return to the before times, we're probably not going to everybody in the office 5 days a week. How can we keep what was really good about our culture and find new ways to do stuff?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
some organizations are doing a really good job of that, re-examining, reprocessing. And others, financial institutions, Wall Street is saying, get your butt into the office
Yeah.
or your career is over. That's a decision. That's a legit decision companies can make. Now, over time, are you going to retain and attract the people that you want? Are you going to be able to change your culture to match the way the 21st century is unfolding? Maybe, maybe not. But it's your decision to make. Jamie
Yeah.
Dimon at Citibank. You're welcome to make that decision. There are other people who are saying, can we maintain the core of our mission, vision, values, but maybe work in new ways?
Mm.
And
Mm-mm.
that's what the book is about, is what do you want your team to look like, right? Based on the reality of what's the work that needs to get done
Ooh.
and who's doing the work and all that. So it helps break down these very highfalutin theoretical kind of questions into very concrete behavioral things that we need to do. And the biggest thing, of course, is fighting over culture, right? What does it mean? What is culture? Do we have one? What do we want it to look like? So we spend a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah. That's so that's so interesting, right? So, because as I'm reading the book, I'm some certainly nodding my head and then thinking, well, not everybody's going to pick this, right? Not everybody's going to choose this. This is going to be, there's going to be pushback on this from some, and some are just going to, yeah, okay, this is common sense. So let's start. Let's
Well, Ben
rewind a
asked a
little.
really
Go
good
ahead.
question. I don't think we can ignore the question Ben asks in the chat. He says, for organizations that can have all remote employees, isn't it just a matter of shifting real estate expenses so that we don't have an office, but we're still going to have to get everybody together once a quarter in Vegas to get work done? That's a very possible answer. That's a good answer. There is a large outdoor equipment company that I will not name in Seattle. I've just told you who it is. They built a brand new office building during COVID, and they've already sold it because they decided we're not going to have everybody come into the office every day. What we built, expecting it to be, everybody's in the office every day all the time, we no longer need that much space. And the way the space we have is configured isn't going to work anyway.
Hmm.
So it's not just like, oh, now we can save money on, when COVID hit, Kevin and I used to joke that the two businesses we would not want to be in are dry cleaning and commercial real estate.
Right?
Turns out companies still want offices. Sometimes it's the owner's ego, sometimes it's the right answer and a practical solution.
Yeah.
Um, but it's going to be different for everybody, and that's why the if we've gotten negative feedback on the book, and we've had very little, um, it's well, I'm looking for the answer. And the truth is, we don't have it. We can't tell you, here's what your company should look like. We're telling you that you know what you do, you know how best to service your customers, you know who you have on your team and who does what and where. Make the decisions based on that.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So lots and lots to unpack there, and lots of the ways we could go. But I guess fundamentally, though, and you actually hit this in chapter 3, and that is all about establishing ownership. And you say it's not who you think. And I think that's super important for folks to remember this, because if there's like the whole book is really good, but if they were going to focus on one chapter, I would posit that this is the one. Because if we can define this, right, we can answer a lot of the rest of our questions. So talk to me about that, Wayne. What the heck does that mean? Recognizing who the owners are, and it's not only who you think.
Yeah, who owns the culture of a company? And it's very easy to say the Kevin Eikenberry group is run by Kevin Eikenberry, and therefore he decides what the culture of the company is.
Yep.
No, he's got a pretty good idea of what he'd like it to be. And as the company grows, and as we've gone from everybody working out of the house he bought that serves as his office to he now has 2 employees that actually show up in the office in Indianapolis, and everybody else is
Wow.
scattered around the country. Our IT tech person lives in an RV in Tampa at the moment, and she just moves. Her and her husband are snowbirds, and they just drive around, and she runs our entire tech operation out of a Winnebago. Nobody would have guessed that years ago, right? First of all, we didn't even know it was possible. But, Kevin knows what he wants the company to be. He also knows that as we bring people like Wayne on board, right? I'm a good guy and I'm a good soldier, but I'm a mildly disruptive force. The world is going to change when you hire Wayne, and for the better. I believe. Kevin believes. I'm still there. But there's this notion that the senior leadership decides what the company culture is, and then you hire for fit and you do all that good stuff. What's really interesting is that I'm old enough that I have this stack of quotes from books from people who are long dead but mattered at the time. And Peter Drucker had a great quote. He said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day." Like, you can have a plan, and culture is going to form either organically or intentionally, and it's built up of all the people inside the organization. Right? That's why micro teams, that's why micro cultures are sometimes different than the macro culture. Right?
Yeah.
And you've seen this. I work for big giant company X and this is our culture. But man, those people in the Denver office are nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Macro culture, the microculture of the Denver office.
Wow. Yeah. That's so interesting, man. So okay, so now we've created a bunch of possibly fractured microcultures here. Some location based, some job based, some I don't know, I guess,
Well, but
values
it's all those
based.
things, right? Does it matter that you've got people in the Denver office? Do those people all do the same job? Or do you have one admin person, one IT person, one marketing person, and an accounting person, and a sales person, and that's the Denver office. That's very different than the sales team, which is all sales weasels.
Okay, so let's talk about that, right? Because you know that I work a lot in sales. That's my jam
Yep.
here. That's who I spend time with. So is remote sales different than office sales? Because what I hear is, well, I need the energy of the bullpen. I need the insight of the folks next to me so that I can just go the old "Hey Bob, help desk," right? Hey Wayne, how do you do this, man? What's going on? I need your help. I mean, is that different?
Well, and that's an example of what do you sell? Who do you sell to? Right? Are you geography based? Are you trying to, do you have people who are all together, but they're all servicing different parts of the country? Or do you have people going on sales calls that have to be face to face with the customers? Again, every sales operation is different because every company is different because every product is different. That energy is really important. Now, there are a lot of sales, or talk about culture. There are a lot of sales organizations where we work as a team and we're together and we're a unit. But oh, by the way, everybody's sales scores are up on the wall and everybody knows their quota and everybody knows how they're doing. And God help you if you don't miss your quota. And I'm not going to let Phil beat me this month. It's one thing to say we have everybody together so we can collaborate. But as you look at the work that gets done, is it collaborative?
Hmm.
Or is it everybody doing their own thing with their own accounts? And other than getting an answer when I need one, doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
That's so interesting.
Can we replicate some of those experiences? So, for example, the whole how do I get an answer when I need one? Well, you're right. Bob isn't sitting at the next cube like he was before. Do you know how to get hold of Bob? Can you get an answer if you need one? Do you meet as a team periodically to talk about things and address them? Or is everybody just in their own little silo dealing with their own little accounts and that's the way we operate?
Wayne, you're not giving me answers though. You're just giving me ideas. And I say that like fully respectfully, knowing, right, it's all different. I say that kind of tongue in cheek. Like folks are looking for an answer,
Yeah.
and the answer is
And the
your
answer is they
flexibility.
probably know it. They probably know what the answer is. Um, all going back to the first book that Kevin and I wrote together, The Long Distance Leader, right? Our first premise in that book was think leadership first, location second. Managers who think like leaders, who understand the things that leaders need to do, who behave in ways like good leaders, are probably doing just fine remote. Because most of the work is being a leader. When you think about your sales team, how often are they really together? I mean, yeah, it's great to have everybody in the bullpen, but on any given day, this guy's in Denver and this guy's on a sales call and this guy's somewhere else. So they're probably not physically together most of the time anyway, unless you're doing outbound sales. How do we do that? How often do we need to get together? Are we, people talk about missing the energy. I love video calls with customers. I was doing them long before COVID and all the rest of that stuff because I was a small one man operation at the time trying to sell nationally. I couldn't get on a plane or hop in the car every time somebody wanted to have a sales call with me. But I learned really early on that this isn't the same. But man, it's way better than a phone call.
Yeah.
And it's not like we can't do this. Right? And our customers, I mean, back in the day, I would say, do you want to do a webcam call or talk on the phone? And half of them had never done a webcam call before. right? That's no longer the case. So this can be done. Now, if you and I are trying to work together, but you refuse to wear big boy clothes during the day, and you haven't showered till 2 in the afternoon, and you just got back from the gym, and so you don't want to be on camera, that's a problem, right? If you're not willing to take the steps to connect. And it's not,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to be on camera all the time. That's insane. But when it adds value, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to engage? When we have meetings, are you actively engaged, participating, contributing to the brainstorm, or are you answering your emails and, just kind of there?
Hmm.
That has less to do with where you sit and where you are than where you are
Oh,
mentally and how you're connected.
yeah. Well, and how much respect you have for the person that you're working with as well, right? I mean, that's the whole question that a lot of folks have is how do I respect my team when I've never met any of them in person?
I would flip it for a moment. I mean, that's how can I respect? It's interesting. I don't hear how can I respect my team if what I hear is how do I know they're working? How do I know they're engaged? Those are legit tactical questions. I have never had a manager say to me, I can't respect somebody I haven't met.
Good.
Never have I heard somebody say that. The big thing at the beginning of the remote work boom, the dirty little secret is that senior leaders were convinced it would never work. This was going to be the end of production as we know it. Our entire company is going to go bankrupt. People are going to watch The View all day instead of actually getting work done. It's dogs and cats living together. It's just going to be, a disaster of biblical proportion. And what we found, to their surprise, and to a lot of people's surprise, not ours, because we'd been watching this for a while. We were on that street corner a long time before COVID came. What we found was a couple of things that they didn't expect. Number one is productivity did not drop. There was an initial thing while they figured out, how are we going to have meetings and how are we going to get work done and, figuring out the logistics. There was a momentary blip in productivity, but for the most part, productivity did not drop. And in many cases, it actually went up. The second thing, and this is the thing that floored people, employee engagement scores went off the charts. They thought, people aren't together, they're not hanging out, they're not socializing, they're going to become less engaged. In the early days of COVID, engagement actually went up. You see, you're giving me the Scooby-Doo face.
Right.
Oh, but here's the thing. Think about it. There's a crisis. We need to pull together. Yeah, I want to keep my job, so obviously I'm going to put in discretionary effort and I'm going to try a little harder. But you know what? This is a crisis and we're all in it. And I like my job and I like my coworkers and I like my managers, so I'm going to be actively engaged. I'm going to put the effort in. I'm going to care. I'm going to learn stuff. And all of that went up. People want to be connected. They want to be part of something. When they care, they do good work. Shocking. Right. Now, what happens over time is now, as this drags on and it drags on, and some people hate not being in the office, and some people love it, and some people are inherently lazy and useless, and we know that. But that is a very small percentage of people, right? Most remote work policies are designed to control the few people, right? Rather
Right.
than most
That's right.
people who are just getting
Yep.
on with it.
Yep. That's right.
Now, over time, we start to revert to, oh, okay, this is no longer crisis mode. This is the way it is. Now, how engaged am I now? And it's interesting. The studies on engagement are kind of showing that people who work remotely or in flexible hybrid kind of arrangements, if they're engaged, they are the most engaged employees you have. Why? They're happy. They're not burned out from commuting. They've essentially given themselves a raise by not spending all that money on parking and driving and eating and all that stuff. Their work-life balance is better. They're working at times that fit their body clock. Now, the reason for this is because companies can not force engagement. There is a lot of money being spent on consults. Well, we have to, get our people more engaged. The problem is that I've thought about this. You'll be shocked to discover I spend a lot of time thinking about weird stuff. The word engagement is the answer. If I meet somebody and I decide I want to spend the rest of my days with them, I can wine and dine them. I can be fun. I can buy a ring. I can get down on one knee. I can ask them to marry me. You know when they're engaged? When they say yes.
Ooh.
Engagement is self-driven. Now, are there things I can do to make the circumstances more or less likely that they will choose to engage with me? And that's the thing about teams and organizations. Bringing you into the office every day is not automatically going to make you engage. As a matter of fact, I've lived in Vancouver, Toronto, Los Angeles, and Chicago. I've commuted in all of those cities. I am never in a better mood after reaching the office in one of those places, right? So just the act of getting people together does not automatically mean that they're going to engage. Now, are people social animals? Yes. Do most people require some degree of interaction and actually liking the people we work with and forging relationships? Yeah, absolutely. And some people do that better in person, and some people do that just fine on their own. I mean, we're part of the cultural shift in remote and hybrid work is that for 150 years, North Americans have gotten over 60% of their weekly social interaction through the workplace.
Wow.
We're no longer, whole days may go by that we don't actually talk to another human being. That's very different. That's something we need to address. How important is that to your team and to the way your team functions? But you can't make people engage.
Darn it, Wayne. I was going to ask you for the secret.
Well, I've been engaged twice and the second time stuck. So whatever I'm doing is working, right? It's worked for 30 years. I guess I'm doing okay.
That's funny, man. That is so funny. So, wow. So much here, so much just options, right? Choosing, being intentional is the theme of the book here. So Wayne, what's next here with the long distance team? Like where do I take this, right? I help me make some decisions.
Okay, so the decision that you have to make, I'm going to say 3 because I'm pulling this out of my hat. I may ultimately be wrong. First thing is, what is the culture I want to have? What is your aspirational culture?
Okay.
And when people say culture, that's a very encompassing $10 HR word. What does that mean? Culture, very simplistically, culture is this is how we do it here. Right? This is why working at this company is different than working at this company, because here we do X. The question, if you're going to actually figure out what kind of culture you want, is what is the it that you do? And so one of the big ideas in the book, in good consultancy fashion, is we have a model that we call the 3C's model. And it says, when you think about culture, what does that actually mean? It's communication, collaboration, and cohesion. Communication, how do we communicate with each other? And that's not only technically how do we communicate, what tools do we have, but are we a primarily Microsoft Teams kind of culture? A lot of chat messages back and forth, and we use webcams, and that works fine for us. Are we, no, we need to meet in person. Those hallway conversations are really important. How do we choose to communicate? Are we formal? Are we informal? Is my CEO a great communicator, or does all the grunt work of communication happen at the team level? Communication is the first thing. Second thing is collaboration. How does work get done? What are the handoffs? Do we have to have a meeting for everything? Which is a fair question. I mean, one of the things in the before times, people used to go to work from home because they could actually get stuff done. And now we're hearing, I'm in Zoom meetings from dawn till dusk. That's a cultural thing. Why are they doing that? Because we want people to talk to each other, and the only way we can think to do that is meetings. Are there other ways? Can you work in smaller groups? Can you work more asynchronously and still collaborate and get answers and do that? And the answer is, yeah, there's probably lots of things you can do there. But how do we communicate? How does the work get done so that we're doing good work, servicing our clients? The needs of the business matter, right? If you absolutely cannot work without having people in the office at least occasionally, that's the decision you're making. It's a valid decision. And if people don't want to come in, that's their choice too. You take a man's money, you do the job. Nothing has changed in the 50 years since my old man taught me that. And then the third C is cohesion, which is, how do we get along? What are the relationship? What's the glue that keeps us all together? And on a sales team, that might be fun competition. On an engineering team, it might be the ability to go to each other and hammer out code till we figure it out. Other places, if my job is fight traffic, come into the office, hang my coat over my chair, sit there over my keyboard all day, pick up my coat and leave at the end of the day, why did I come into the office? So communication, collaboration, and cohesion, and whatever that looks like for your team is ultimately what defines your culture. Some cultures are fun. Some cultures are serious. Some cultures are competitive. Some cultures are all about finding the best answer. And if we butt heads occasionally, as long as the answer comes out, that's great. And there are other places where it's harmony at all costs. And so as a culture, we might not come up with the objectively perfect answer, but we're going to come up with one that everybody can live with.
Satisfying answers, right?
Yeah. Which is more important, finding an answer that, everybody, we compromise and we reach a decision that's here, or, periodically people are going to get their oxes gored, but we're going to do the definitive best thing. All those things, if you add them all up, that's what your culture is. Now, do you do it? Does it happen by accident, or do you do it on purpose? So to get back to where we started this foolishness, what is the culture that we want and or need, right? In order for this business to be successful, what do we need to have happen? Then, and there is, 20 pages of questions and things to help you reach those answers. And that, by the way, cannot be one person answering those questions and then deciding this is the culture. That needs to involve as many people as possible on as many levels of the organization, because if people aren't part of the process consciously, and they're not asked for their opinion, you can get compliance, but it's really hard to get buy-in.
No
And
commitment.
if you
Yep.
want to change your culture, people are going to have to buy in. What is the culture we want? What is our culture now? What needs to be different? And then what are the things that we do, communication, collaboration, cohesion, that will get us to that culture?
Wow.
If
Wow.
our goal is group brainstorming and the only variable compensation in our company is how much I sell, you can develop a culture where all your sales engineers and designers and product people are really resentful of your sales staff. And your sales staff is always beating on them because they're going to lose a sale if they don't do their job. But what's their motivation to do their job?
Yeah. Wow. So much there, buddy. So much there. So that sounds like a good place for folks to get started. There's a lot there to unpack. There's a lot to do. I love that you didn't give me a step by step here because there isn't one. I think that's important to kind of restate here that there isn't one, but you have decisions that you can make that can help get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's funny. You said, there's long distance leader and long distance teammate. Now there's long distance team. And what's next? This is it. I mean, long distance leader looked at the role of the leader, and people were saying, this feels weird and it feels different. And how do I do this? And then we looked at long distance teammate and said, how do people become real teammates? Not just members of a team, but teammates. Work in a way that is rewarding and creates relationships and all that. But none of that's going to matter individually if the culture doesn't support those behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to be here for a good while, right? I really think, to your point earlier, hybrid is a choice that many will make. We may not build the biggest buildings, but we will likely have an option for some, maybe not all, even if it's just a few that work from home and that are working long distance. I think that's super important, man.
I think as we talk about hybrid, and a lot of people, it's the princess bride. You use that word a lot. I don't think it means what you think it means. Um, Hybrid is not just some people are in one location and some are in another. Something that is a hybrid is two things put together and it creates something new. A mule is not a donkey and it's not a horse. It has attributes of both, but a mule is a mule. And if you've ever dealt with mules, you know that they are their own unique animal. Hybrid work is not just going to be where people are. I think the biggest thing that we are going to deal with as a work society, for lack of a better word, is when people work. It's the time factor. The biggest thing about hybrid teams is, does everybody need to be working at the same time in order for work to happen? Because if so, you get limited by time zones and you get limited by, great, you can work from home and set your own schedule, but if you're not on that 10 o'clock call, you're fired. Right? I tried to reach you. Where were you? I couldn't reach you. Obviously, you're not working. Well, no, that's not true. But if I do my best work in the evening, I'm a morning person. I do my best work first thing in the morning. If we have a Teams channel that's talking about something, that's where I can, hey, I thought of this. Is this a good idea? Or, what you said yesterday in that meeting? Have we thought about this? And we can have those kind of asynchronous discussions and contributions that can get good work out of people regardless of the time of day. And then if we have to have a meeting, all the preliminary work has been done and people come in knowing this is what we're going to accomplish. And then after the meeting, there's room for, you know what I thought about later? Have we thought about this? Hey, when Bob said that, maybe we could do this. And so asynchronous work is a factor in hybrid work that we haven't gotten our mitts around because frankly, we've never done it before.
Yeah. Well,
But
we've never
time
had
is
to.
going to be the factor. Time is going to be what's different, right? People are talking about going to a 4-day work week, or they're going to do this, or they're going to do that. You know, we didn't get a 5-day, 8-hour work week without blood in the streets, literally. We think of that as the natural way to work. It took years of conflict and upheaval and weirdness for people to decide that was a reasonable work week. And while it is hard to send the Pinkertons to beat on somebody if they aren't in your office, there's still going to be that kind of upheaval. Is it okay for people not to be at their desk at 10 in the morning? When are they at their desk? When are they getting the work done? Time is going to be the most complicated factor, and it's going to be what differentiates great hybrid teams from just teams where people are in different locations.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so much to think about, buddy. For folks that are listening and watching, check out longdistanceteambook.com. Get to know Wayne, get to know Kevin a little bit. The whole trilogy, it's no Lord of the Rings, but it's pretty darn good. And
the movie sucks, though.
Have you seen the movie? Because I'm waiting for that. Was Kevin in it too? I'm just wondering because I've seen some videos.
Well, look, if this is your leading man, how much trouble are you in?
Exactly. So Wayne, as always, man, we can talk for hours, but this is super helpful. I hope folks take this as what it is, and that is this is an opportunity to rethink the way you do your team. This is an opportunity to redefine the way you do your team, defining your culture, establishing ownership, getting there. And let's not forget about the 3C model that Wayne shared with us: communication, collaboration, and cohesion. Think about those things, get on them, and then go get a copy of the Long Distance Team. Wayne, as always, buddy, it's great to see you. Thanks for everything.